All right, let's jump straight into it. Reeps One, aka Harry Yeth. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. And how you doing? Where are you?
I'm good, man. I'm in London. I managed to like make it home. Yeah, I was actually out in Europe when things started to get pretty hectic. But I made it home. I think just like everyone, looking after family, trying to make sure everything is balanced, trying to create some structure, and then also being in the lab and trying to find the next craziest thing that I can get my get my hands on conceptually, basically.
Yeah.
So it's an odd time, isn't it, where you kind of have this extreme pressure, all this like unpredictability and lack of structure, but then you also have this sort of like full Garden of Eden of opportunity and time that you've been waiting for a long time. So it's great. It's great right now.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, man? I think I was saying this on the last podcast with Greg Mike. It's like the ultimate procrastinator's test, you know, because all of a sudden you've got all that time to do everything that you kind of needed to do. And still somehow I find a way to put it off.
Well, there was a really like triggering meme I saw, which is it was something like, if you're not doing the thing you wanted to do now, the problem wasn't circumstance, it was you. It's you. Yeah, so it was you had an issue with discipline, not with being tired or being too busy.
Yeah.
Which is a hard truth, but I saw
Mate,
that. And
that's a harsh meme, isn't it? There's no like there's no answer there. There's no solution. It's
well,
just like, yeah, it was you.
yeah, tell people how it is. That's what memes are for, right? They kind of cut through. It's the higher dimensional form of communication which we've needed as a human race,
Yeah.
to get tough advice.
I'm with it, man. Well, look, let's jump into this. And I think probably the best place to start is for people who might not know who you are. How do you describe yourself, or how do you describe what you do, if you do describe yourself at all?
Well, first off, I'm Terry's little brother. That's my main title. But the
Oh, big up Terry. Sorry, mate. Sorry to cut you off, but Terry and Emmett, our producer, are both keeping a watchful eye over us. They're on mute, but who knows? Maybe they'll make a little guest appearance if the time's right. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, I've had many roles through time, but effectively, I am in love with voices. So, like, I rose up through the beatbox world, became one of the leaders in that space, which I think is still growing. Not everybody has an idea of like what beatboxing is, but not everybody really knows like where it's gone. But effectively, I pushed that as hard as I can, technically, conceptually, and it led to some pretty crazy places. Like after I had toured the world, I ended up falling into the space of research. So I've taken a lot of joy in. I've been a guest lecturer at Harvard University. I'm part of the EAT program, the Experiments in Art Technology program at Bell Labs. I'm a culture leader with the World Economic Forum. But the only reason I'm doing all that stuff is to make the masses in the world think about their voices, and to really have the time or the care to understand how far a human voice can go. And there's so much uncharted territory in the world of voice and art, voice and technology, communication. But that all came from me like beatboxing dubstep and grime in London,
Yeah.
which is a really crazy route to go from like starting mosh pits to becoming an artist in research.
Mate, it really is. And it is one of the most inspiring and heartening things I find about you and your story is exactly that. I just think it's so great to see such a crazy example of someone taking something that I would consider is pretty niche, right? Beatboxing is quite a niche thing, or it
Very
was
niche.
quite a niche thing. Yeah, and to watch it take you on this journey that just seemingly encompasses anything and everything you want to do. The evolution is amazing. And I've always been like a big believer that as long as you were kind of acting or working with like a genuine passion, it doesn't matter what you're into. Yes, some people are into like big kind of things that are very popular, like soccer and singing, and that's great, that's fantastic. But even if you're like really into ping pong or some weird computer game, like whatever the fuck it is, as long as you're working with a passion, I do believe that life will kind of, you know, to describe it in a woo-woo manner, life will conspire to you know, to let you get everything you need from that thing. Not so much a question, more of a statement, but
No, but it's a great statement. Like, I think I do believe that sincerity prevails. Like another phrase, like honesty surpasses style. Like if you're coming from a place of intent and belief and passion, the world can really bend around you. And I think that's an idea that isn't really, like, you see it manifest. You see people like grow as thinkers, or in their business, or in their style, or in their art. But it's important to take stops for a moment and think, oh, hold on, why do people kind of move forward in anything they're doing? And it is the volition, it's the intent, it's the belief. And if it comes from something honest, man, I totally agree that there's an extra force behind you. Like, you're kind of seeing the DNA of how things work a little bit more, and people are more willing to more willing to push you and help make those things happen. And you saw me as like a proper little Ute, in like just with no clue, but I just knew I wanted to be in front of audiences, and I wanted to try and push it. And man, you're a mentor, and Terry as well, genuine mentors for me in the beginning. So yeah, that honesty was there from the start.
well, mate, firstly, that's beautiful to hear. And, you know, straight back at you, you're definitely a mentor for me now. And that in itself is a beautiful thing, because, yes, you know, I'm a little older than you, and you definitely did come onto the scene as the kind of entertainment at Secret Walls, right? And even back then, incredible, you know, even back then, I didn't really see what you were doing as just beatboxing. There was definitely like something else going on. But, you know, yeah, just amazing to see that evolution. And just jumping back to what we were saying, you know, I don't think that maybe not everyone will become like a star in the thing they want to do. But again, if you're working with that genuine passion, I think life will find a way to, you know, make what you love doing work for you in some way. You know, it could be behind the scenes or something like that. But okay, leading on to my next kind of question, did you know from early on that this kind of path was possible? You know, like, surely not. It's, you know, back when you were a kid, beatboxing at kind of like half time at the end of a sequels battle, were you thinking, yeah, I know that I'm on a path to, you know, getting the kind of money I need and having the incredible experiences that I need?
Yeah, absolutely not. There was nothing there was no pathway, there was no route, there was no expectation. Like, all I was thinking was like, and like, that was basically it. And yeah, it's an odd one, because it was this kind of like incremental. At first there wasn't much structure, but then you had this just step by step constant like pursuit and growth, which allowed for week by week and month by month, more opportunities would come. And it went from music, and then like I never thought I would like sort of win a competition, and then I won a load, and then I never thought I'd like play in front of 1,000 people, and then I played in front of 5,000 people. And each time I thought there was a limit, it kind of, the world provided an opportunity. And that kept escalating to the point where music had offered so much that and that's all I ever knew was voice, beatboxing, and music, and touring, and audiences, that I was like, do you know what? I need to kind of stop. And it was maybe 4 years ago that I was like, do you know what? Hold on, wait a minute. Why am I doing all this? I've been going for like a long time now.
I love it when you do that, mate.
Yeah, I don't. Do I really know why? Like, it's just kept growing. It's kept growing because I didn't have this structure, or this sort of necessarily like that second awakening where I was like, hold on, meaning. And in that break, I found this idea to actually talk about things more, and to discuss, and communication and connection. And I started working more with institutions, and I got invited to UCL. I had my brain scanned 7 times for different voice experiments, and which is a whole other conversation. But it was that step-by-step thing that eventually I led to this space of, why am I doing this? And that seemed to be the most fundamental, path changing, most structure creating thing that could have ever happened to me. And the reason I say that is I think many other artists go through like a second puberty, I call it, where
Nice.
maybe they're successful and they're making some bank and they're doing their thing and their friends know that they do that thing and they get loads of opportunities. And then I'd say about 5 or 6 years, there's this kind of thing that happens when everyone starts going, wait a minute, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And that path is something that you see all across the board with people that have been doing their thing for some time. And for me, that was the first time I got real structure in what I'm doing. And there was no way I could have known it would have led to like research and performance and like breaking research records and blah, blah, blah. But that's what I think is interesting, is trying to push the envelope, do things that have never happened before.
It really is. And what you're saying about that kind of second awakening or that second puberty, that really resonates with me, because even on this podcast, that's something I guess that we're kind of like trying to hone in on. I am really interested to speak to the people to find out like the purpose and the reason, as you say, behind what they do, that creative, awesome thing they do. You know, it's great to get someone on who's been very successful, but you know, for me, at the age I'm at now, when you kind of hear like just a list of achievements for the sake of it, I don't find it as impressive as having a conversation where someone will take the creativity that like induced those achievements and like explains how that relates to life, you know, how that kind of relates to balance and happiness and all those sorts of things. So that's awesome, man. So look, dude, I wanted to move on to, you know, obviously in anticipation of this podcast episode, I've been researching the hell out of you. And the standout video for me was the piece that you just did at the Davos. What was that? The Davos? I forget what it's called.
So World Economic Forum.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum, man. I mean, dude, like, so I got chills watching that. I really did. And, you know, obviously we're going to put all the kind of links so that everyone can check out your videos on this podcast. But listening to that, mate, and I think this relates to what we're saying, you know, I was hearing something that like completely transcends beatbox, you know, as the kind of fifth element of hip hop. And I really did find it, like, it stopped me in my tracks. You know, Reeps, for anyone who hasn't seen it, comes on, and the first kind of thing you do is it's just like this beautiful, like, vocal. You know, it's not even a beat. It's like this angelic vocal, which just, like, you know, it makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But my point is that when I was listening to that, I related that more to the feeling I get when I'm trying to meditate and I've got some like Tibetan bowls in the background, or you know, if I'm hearing some like Buddhist chants, or, you know, or something like that. I found it really transformative. So, you know, is that the aim here? Is it more about kind of what, you know, what you're experiencing while you're doing this, and what other people are experiencing and how they connect to you while you're doing it, more than like a showpiece, than entertainment?
Yeah, well, that piece specifically, man, there's so much to like talk about when it comes to that piece being made, because the World Economic Forum, and especially Davos, is seen as like one of the most elite events in the world, and they literally try and guide humanity for the next year. And that comes with all kinds of controversy and ups and downs, and people think it's one type of space. But the 3,000 or 4,000 people that get to go to that event, there really is this energy of, it's a forum. So you kind of get the spectrum of power and humanity and opinions. They all come together and they basically like have it out. So they battle each other effectively in terms of like, this is what I think. And then you have the opportunity and the context for someone else who normally is in a bubble or in a space that they're inaccessible. Their ideas get tested. And for that reason, that's why I've, like, as a kid from Walthamstow, from like a rough upbringing, to them to close the 50th event of Davos, doesn't always seem like a connection, but the goal there was to try and tap into and push people towards this question of like, what is a global voice? And trying to tap into something that is objective and universal. So the tones I was singing and the ideas and the energy it wasn't about me. It was about trying to tap into something. So for you to say that you took that from that, and I've had all kinds of crazy reactions to that piece, man, in the way that it evokes like a sensation of beyondness. And the techniques I use a number of different really tribal and unique like site-specific vocal techniques, which came together to show the full spectrum of voice. The visuals were directed by myself and Rama Allen from The Mill, and the choir was the London Contemporary Voices Choir. So you had this testing of voice, and I wanted to tap into something higher, which sounds so wishy-washy. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like it's one of those things, but I left genre behind. I left music behind. It was more ceremony, and it was touching into a lot of the ideas you get when it comes to chant and like Gregorian like vocals. They do hit a spot which is old as hell. Singing and voices is so old. It goes back like as long as music and humanity goes, like vocal expression. So obviously anyone listening to this, they're like, well, what the hell is this piece? We haven't heard it. But that was the goal. And it's great that you picked up on that, man. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Look, they might be thinking that, but what an advert for the piece we've just given them. So I'm sure they're going to check it out afterwards. But that is exactly it for me. Honestly, I think next time I meditate, I'm gonna listen to that, because it kind of this is what I wanted to ask you, like how it's almost like a form of vocal yoga or something like that. That's kind of like the sense I got when I was watching you do it, and it just reminded me of the times that I've meditated that have been the most successful. Like, do you meditate at all?
Yeah,
I mean, I'd say that your beatboxing, dude, your performances are a form of meditation anyway, but do you have like a set time that you do what you would call meditation?
So I'm very specific with the words that I use. I do a lot of like breath work and structured thinking, which sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, but being mindful, I think, manifests in so many different ways. And I guess if I was to try and define what my intention is when I do these things, it's to be present, and it's to experience a moment in time when I am entirely and wholly involved in what I'm doing. Because
Wow.
man, it's so easy to be in 7 places at the same time in this day and age. And I am ADD as hell. I'm a quad screener. Do you know what I mean? I'll have my 2 monitors going. I'll have my like TV playing, and then my PlayStation's on, and my phone screen, and then I've got an iPad, and anyway, it's all overstimulation. So I try to follow my passions to achieve a moment in which I'm totally involved, and my voice is definitely the way that I do that. And there's a technique I actually used in that performance, which is called the inward drag, and I actually use that to focus. So it's like a diaphragm technique, and it sounds like this. I won't do it for too long, but I'm gonna do it for about 20 seconds just to give you an idea of, because when I'm doing it, I have to be so focused that it brings me into that moment. So that technique, it sounds like let's say, forget if you think it's musical or not, the actual physical control of that, I get a lot of benefits out of that, which I think a lot of people get from meditation and breath work. I think is incredible. Taking the time out to focus on something is a big part of my life. But as an ADD person, I think I achieve a better result from doing, and that can be through meditation drawing, which is a really interesting thing, sound baths, like really like active, deep listening, and breath. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I love that, and I relate to everything you said, especially meditation, because I've always found, you know, sitting down and I am like attempting to meditate. I am now going to meditate really, really difficult, because it can feel like the point of it is to try and, you know, turn off your thinking. And I find that really, really hard. But what I've found quite successful, firstly, as you're saying, like meditative, like practices, even like playing ping pong or something like that, you know, playing a game of ping pong, I find can be like a meditation, because as you said, my aim is always to just be kind of present and be so involved in what I'm doing that, you know, it's just kind of, I'm just in reality, and there's not much else going on. But the only times I found a meditation really successful is when I have done what I think is called like body awareness meditation, like inner body meditation, where you're trying to kind of essentially feel, you know, the energy in your body. And then leading on from that, another form that I've found quite successful is when you're just trying to listen to like a gong or something like that. And, you know, you'll basically hit something that makes a long drawn out noise, and as that noise starts to dissipate, you're just trying to kind of hear the end of it. And what you notice is that you're kind of so acutely focused on hearing the end of that noise that what you're left with is just pure presence. And the reason I say that is because the way that you do what you do seems like kind of the best of both worlds. It's like an amplification of your breath. So I imagine if I'm just there trying to concentrate on my breath, if I'm trying to do what you do, I'm going to find it a lot easier almost to concentrate on my breath, you know? And if I'm just making, you know, noises with my mouth like that, then I'm going to find it so much easier to kind of hear noise and feel vibration within my body. So, mate, I think you should bring out some kind of meditation app. Are there any plans for that?
It's funny you say that. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but one of the main ideas is that the health benefits of understanding yourself through your voice are huge. Because like for the listeners, think about your working relationships, think about your friendships, think about like how you connect to your loved ones. You don't really think about it, but the pitch and tone and timbre of your voice has a massive impact on the context and the kind of goalposts of your intent and the way in which you share what is inside of you and what you are feeling. So the voice is a huge bridge to how you connect to the people around you. But what's especially interesting is with every expression that you give, so every time, with every utterance of sharing with, say, a loved one or with a friend, you are simultaneously carving out a sense of self inwardly. So the voice is one of the very few things that with every expression, you also impact yourself inwardly. And the voice is not just an outward thing. So the voice being a bridge between the cloud of intent and abstraction that is your consciousness, manifesting and then being shared with the world around you. It's a stunning bridge that is ignored every single day. So a lot of my work with technology, a lot of my work as a researcher, my work as an artist, and even when I just like start a mosh pit on stage, like all I'm really trying to do is to basically kick up that thought of like, hold on, wait, oh yeah, I have one of those. Like I have that voice. I'm gonna think about that. And the benefits and the inspiration that I've seen it, how it's affected people again and again and again is so rewarding. And we definitely are exploring the idea of putting something together that is more well-being focused, because there's an untapped space there. So maybe I don't want to say too much because it's a really exciting thing that we're working on. But just for the listeners, like there's a direct benefit to the things I said, and no pressure, but think about your voice, how it feels, how it resonates. Put your hand on your throat, like consider.
Mate, well, I am looking forward to that app. So hopefully that'll come out. But yeah, you know what, just listening to you speak there, it's another point that I wanted to raise. When you are doing this performance at Davos, the smartly dressed guy in the suit comes out, and one of the things he says, which is, you know, it's a beautiful little statement, is imagine a world where everyone communicates with more intention and listens with more generosity. And you kind of went into it a little bit there, but I was just interested, especially the listening with generosity, because I feel that's super important. But if you could just unpack that a little bit and why that's important or a good thing.
Well, I guess it's a really important question, is like sitting yourself down and thinking, how am I communicating with the world? And I think a lot of people are so dominated by digital. Everybody is connected, but what is actually the quality of your connections? And taking a moment to really think about that is a tough question, because most people will find that there's lots that they could be doing which is more in sync with maybe what they want. And the thing is, there's so many quick ways of connecting with people that the question comes like, so what actually, if you had more time, what would you do with it? Do you even know? So the idea of listening and feeling your voice can have a direct connection to being mindful of how you speak, and having more control and realization of the self. And to do that would hopefully lead to better quality of communication. Because again, I mentioned your loved ones, your relationships, your family. There is a direct connection between how you communicate and the quality of your life itself. So to be mindful of that, to practice deep listening, to really stop and give yourself time to internalize what something is being said or how it sounds. Like, for example, taking your time eating your food. Like, that's people, like, I'm the worst for it. I am one of these horrible people that eat standing up sometimes, because I'll be on my phone, I'm busy, I'll make food as soon as it's on the plate. I'm like, boom, 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 gone. But if it's a crazy practice, you stop and you really take your time eating a meal. You can say the same thing for all of your senses.
Yeah.
So the sentiment in that piece is that we, through experimentation and wonder and beauty and expression, you can inspire people to actually stop for a moment and think, is there a deeperness in my surroundings? Is there a deeperness in my senses? And my way of accessing that is through a deeperness within the voice, which deeperness is not a real term. It's a poetic term I'm using to push my incentive. So.
It's a beautiful term. Amazing, dude. And when you're talking about eating as well, that's something I definitely relate to, right? It's like, you know, I'll often find myself, if I have the wherewithal, the awareness to notice this, I'm like, Jimmy, why the fuck are you eating so quickly? You know, I'm eating to get to this destination. What's the destination? Like, not eating. You know, what's the point? Just enjoy it and have that kind of experience of presence while you're doing it. But the way I feel that relates back to what you're saying with conversation is, dude, man, so many conversations that I get into, and I know the other people who are in the conversation with me are doing the same thing. It's like, you're not listening. You stop talking, and then you're kind of waiting for your turn to go. You know what I mean? And you're, again, just constantly trying to like blitz through life to get to some kind of abstract destination, rather than just enjoying the experiences as they happen. But listening to what you're talking about, and the way, you know, listening with generosity and also speaking with like more intent sounds incredible, because it seems like it encompasses, it seems like it's encompassing what's kind of going on in your head as thought, and being able to maybe control that a little more, as well as you're talking about the kind of like pitch and tone of your voice, you know, and being more direct. Man,
it's also one of the few things that you actually have full control over. Do you know what I mean? A lot of other things are like, rely on other people or structures. Your voice is yours. It truly is yours. And it's the first stage of expression. And it's so goddamn universal. This is the thing. Like, so if we talk about, as an artist, like, what are the kinds of ideas you want to be messing with? I could create a drawing. I could then create a larger drawing, or I could make a bigger canvas, or I could release a digital version of that gets shared 1 million times, or I could create a video of me making that, which gets 10 million views. So you got to think, okay, so what is this ladder of impact and success? And I think the only certain things in artistry, and so only certain artists, mediums, have the capacity to be truly objective. Like, you can explore with your medium a subject that could actually impact every single human being on the planet. And the reason I love that idea of exploring your voice and using the voice as a medium for art and fine art and installation and technology and performance and talks is because if the message comes through and it connects, it's an idea that can be beneficial to every single living person on the planet. So you're thinking into, I'm thinking in terms of scalability of positivity when I think about these ideas. And yes, at the end of the day, I'm doing some crazy stuff with my voice, but the sentiment, the idea is to hopefully eventually arrive at a piece of art or a performance that actually changes the entire way the planet sees human voice. And that is the intention that I'm focusing on.
I'm loving this, man. This is resonating so hard. I mean, just hearing you there, it's so true. Because obviously the thoughts bounce around my head, like it's crazy in my head, and I'm sure everyone listening can relate to that. There's no holds barred in your head, you know. You're thinking of anything and everything. It's a fucking mess, to be honest, at most times. So to sharpen that ability to kind of pick out, extract the positive or useful parts of that noise and then project them outwardly, with clear intent, as you're saying, is incredible. And I also like what you were saying about how it's almost like that every time you speak, it's not just an outward projection. You know, there's almost like two people listening. You're listening to yourself, right? So, dude, I mean, I just find that all amazing, mate. So when you first got into beatboxing, was that because of a fascination you had with the human voice, or was beatboxing the catalyst for your fascination with the human voice?
No, I was totally like interested in just like making sick beats basically. That was the goal. And I was surrounded by producers and and kind of artists. Like I came from early grime and early dubstep, which is like fully like London centric, like road rap energy. And like it was more about the immediacy of it that I guess I touched on it before, but I didn't have to rely on anyone. Like I could just start and go. And there was something about the fact that I could do it anywhere, at any time, whenever I wanted, is what made it so exciting for me. And it just kind of continued to like escalate from there. Just the fact I could make people dance with my voice, the fact I could like, every time I found a new sound, it was possibly a sound that no human being has ever made.
Yeah, right.
So, so it was that kind of drive of really wanting to do something that no one's done before. And also like I was a sort of a fiend for challenge. Like my life at home, I didn't have much support. Like I had a quite a difficult like upbringing. So I had to find structure, like many people do, like in the world of graph and street art and sort of ideas that maybe originated from hip hop sort of ownership of like, I'm going to get good at this to prove that I'm strong and that I'm able to carry myself. So it came more from those sensibilities. And I always loved that about, I was never a hip hop head, but I loved the philosophy of the early kind of, the earlier ideas where you were not going to go out and fight someone, you were going to battle them.
Yeah.
I think that was such a beautiful idea, that your ideas were what pushed through and your ideas is what gave you your worth instead of aggression.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's always been quite therapeutic for you, right? I mean, back in those early days, is that something that you kind of acknowledged, that you were doing this as a therapy, or was the therapy more just in the fact that you were like committed to your hobby? Or, or was there an extra layer of therapy where you felt more connected with your inner body because of the noises you were making?
Yeah, I guess without realizing it, it was totally my temple. Like making this is what's so contradictory about me, and it's so weird that it's manifested the way that it has. It's because I started something out of pure innocent wanting to just create all the time. Like I had no expectation it was ever going to lead to anything, but from the beginning, it gave me something that was mine. And it's so crazy that in finding that and finding something that, because I didn't have the resources to be given shit. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have the laptops and the kind of the funds that maybe some of my friends had. So because of that, I just had my body and I had me. So I was inspired by the world around me, and then that led to me making sounds and performing. But I still don't know whether it's coincidence or whether it's something in me. Like the way that I innovated in it, it allowed me to find something so primal and fundamental, and it had so many benefits to like to be resonating every day, to be like every single day. My body's literally vibrating. Who knows what impacts that's had on me? But the
Well,
main
dude,
thing is,
even when you do that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but even when you do that there, like you must be thinking like, no, you know, if you've been having like a tough day and there's loads of shit going on in your head, you can literally do that, make that noise, vibrate like that, and just be like, fucking hell, here I am, you know. And I imagine that everything just flies out your head, and you're just
well,
there.
yeah, I think maybe what you're touching on there, which is a really important point, is it's definitely flow state, when you're building up this momentum and this feeling of like, say I was to choose a pattern or a beat, like say a really complex one, and then you just keep repeating it, you do just start to sink into this flow, which is like so instantaneous. So say if I was to take like a sort of a faster beat, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cycle that idea and that repetition, because I'm breathing in and out in such a way, and it's a really complex movement that's happening. But I think you'll just get an idea of, like, try to imagine you doing this right now, and it just happening, and it going round and round.
I'm gonna feel it.
So the idea, I don't know, I'll make something up, but it might be like so with each round of the rhythm, and as it's happening, those movements and those musical ideas are instantaneous, and you're changing elements each bar. It might be one sounds coming in and out, and you can be locked in to this complex vocal idea. But just by like focusing on only that and it being cyclical, you definitely achieve a state of flow. And I've done a lot of work in the space of flow. I was actually part of a study at UCL where I had my brain scanned whilst I was beatboxing.
Yeah.
And it was a study all about expert behavior, which is like the fancy word for flow. And they proved that when I beatbox, it has the same instancy as speech. So I academically proved my beatboxing as flow state and as an expert behavior, which is a very unique achievement. But the point is that that shows people what you're trying to achieve when you're inside of something, is that there is no stammering of concepts. You can just feel it and it happens. And I think that's such an important thing to feel as a human being.
I agree. I really agree. And that sort of, so like flow state, you know, if the result of flow state is creativity, pure creativity, where do you feel that creativity comes from? You know, do you feel, because it's almost like you're describing yourself as a bit of a, like a vessel, sort of channeling creativity through you. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a difficult thing to answer, because you start to, Jimmy, you're so funny. You've pushed me down such a holistic, like you're making like spiritual kind of route. Normally, I don't kind of like talk in these terms.
Oh, don't worry, mate. We'll get back to hip hop soon.
Yeah, but it's well, no, it's good because I have a lot of like academic, as an artist speaking, working with academics, I have a lot of conversations in that space, and I obviously then with in the art space, but just to kind of identify and talk about, if you're channeling something higher, you've got to be so careful, because you start to put words to something which maybe is an intuitive intelligence. And I think I definitely, like my spoken energy, and like so for example, people meet me And I think I have a certain disposition. I believe I have a complex tapestry of several things, and of personalities and ideas. But when I think I'm quite upbeat, and when I'm on stage, many of my friends have said my eyes change, and I can really tap into something which I don't know. It's not I don't know where it comes from, because I feel where it comes from. But in terms of really explaining that, I do believe we have intuitive intelligence and we have conscious intelligence. And I think that we are able to, for example, if I play a game of chess, there's a level of instinct in there, but there is like it's very conscious, and I'm aware of what's happening. But sometimes when I perform, if I'm in front of 5,000 people, I might start one way, but the way that I zig left comes from something else. And when I perform as well, you're in something that I can't manifest until it's that moment.
Yeah.
So I've had quite a few stressed out people who have maybe curated me for, like, I'd say a conference, because I kind of refuse to do a performance before the actual moment. I'll do a rehearsal, I'll do a run through, but I'm never going to like do the performance, because I save that energy.
Yeah.
I'm really incapable of just like faking stuff. And but when it's go time, like I can unlock something, and that definitely feels like it comes from not this place with me talking to you right now. I love the idea that there are things inside of us which we can only get out in certain spaces. I think that's so beautiful, that we're not this like charted map, like everything is covered. And I think that the human body and the human consciousness is so vast that it'd be very presumptuous to try and define it. But when you think in terms of music and art and performance and like martial arts, like MMA,
Yeah.
like being pushed beyond channeling something, fight or flight, there's something magic that happens. And I would love to think that in my music and when I perform, sometimes I can really tap into that.
That's beautiful, mate, and I think that's exactly what I wanted when I asked that question, because you know, I feel like it's very comforting for me to subscribe to the idea that you can get into a state of flow and your creativity isn't all on you. And I guess that's what I was touching upon, and you know, kind of beautifully summed up the unsum-upable with what you said. But you know, I think like writer's block, for example, I've always kind of viewed writer's block as where someone creative is in a panic and really stressing themselves out because they feel like they have to think their creativity. And I guess what I was kind of hoping you touch upon, which you brilliantly did, is that, you know, I almost feel that creativity is when your brain gets out of the way, or when your thoughts get out of the way and something is, you know, allowed to channel through. So that was awesome. But mate,
Well,
yeah,
and as an additional, a friend of mine, Ben Hopper, he's a photographer. He started to explore this concept of, I think, I can't remember where it comes from, but it's basically a word for what you're describing, which is duende. And duende means to be close to God through expression. And again, this is the kind of stuff I was talking about, Jimmy. You're just pulling this out of me. But there's something
it's
about
what the people want, mate. It's what the people want.
Well, I think it's something that everybody can connect with if it's articulated the right way. And that's why I have such a deep respect for gospel. Like, we've all felt that to excel in your expression brings you closer to God. And Jesus, I about to say Jesus Christ, you hear that when they play. And there's definitely something in that our bodies and our minds and the information inside of us is not just our learned experience in our lives. There are systems and instinctual intelligence which can be unlocked through skilled expression, through draftsmanship, and through testing, through extreme experience. It could be the cold. It could be fasting. It could be exercise. It could be expression and music, and these things allow you to tap into whatever that is. And I would be quickly humbled to say that I could sum it up, but I think we can all, anyone in the room or listening, can think there's that space that they've felt at some point, which just feels like, wow, there's something more in me I can get out.
Yeah, mate, I hear you. I hear you. Well, look, let's move on before we implode. Um, Dude, let's talk a little bit about technology. You know, I know that obviously technology and tech plays a big part in what you do now, but can you talk a little bit about how, you know, that came about? Like, when did you kind of start merging different technologies into the sounds that you're making with your own body, or, you know, want to start using technology to kind of test and experiment and push yourself forwards?
So about maybe like 3, 4 years ago, I started getting more creative director opportunities where people knew that I had an experimental disposition and they knew that I was like one of the best in the world at what I do. So more and more people started coming to me saying, "Okay, we have this idea or this video. Could you like either consult or can you help us think about it?" And that started to happen more and more. And I think this really the piece that really started me using technology in my performance was in I think 2017, and it was a piece with The Mill in LA, who's like one of the biggest post-production companies in the world. It was with Aurelia Sound as well, John Hendicott, who's a legend in LA, and he does a lot of spatial audio. And basically, The Mill, John Hendicott, and from Aurelia Sound and YouTube were partnering to use a new VR technology at the time, which was called gyroscopic audio. So basically, they asked me to compose with John a piece of music and a video piece, which tested that audio technology. So when you're in a VR headset, or say you had it on your phone or Samsung phone at the time and headphones, instead of binaural where you're listening to an audio, and when you're sat in a chair, you can make it sound like, say, someone's got a buzzer and they're cutting your hair and it goes from side to side. The audio goes behind your head and it sounds like there's spatial kind of composition. The thing with binaural is when you're listening to that experience, if you were to turn your head left, it meant that the whole experience would switch with your head. So
Wow.
which isn't like the real world. Like in the real world, if you're talking to me now, Jimmy, and it's coming out of my laptop, when I turn my head, the audio stays in the same place, right? So when they released gyroscopic audio for VR, it meant that you could do that for the first time. You could actually do a composition. So the composition was 11 locations in LA. It was a performance. Each space had a different like audio property. So we had like Joshua Tree Canyon, and then we had a huge warehouse, and then there was me in a cupboard. So the piece went through all of those different spaces, and I had to write for that really unique audio challenge. And the piece was amazing. It was shown at like Rain Dance and Cannes Lions, and I was like, wow, okay, this is a really interesting space. So I started to work more and more with engineers and researchers who had a piece of technology that they needed to create a piece of art that made real people care about it at all. And that became, for me, I was like, wow, this is what I love. Is I want the toys and the technology and to connect them together in a way that's just never ever happened before. And that led to me working a lot with machine learning and AI, which has been like an ongoing project for the past 2 years, which has been really, really exciting.
Mate, and we'll get into that. But I'm with you. I mean, you can see that like technology now definitely plays a big part of, you know, in your artistry, and your artistry does, like for me, it looks kind of like distinctly human, right? And I mean that, I think that's such a compliment, because I love abstract oil paintings as much as the next person, but you know, sometimes I'll look at them and think, it's so close, it's such a close replication of nature. You know, I don't know really what more I'm getting at. I may as well go outside and look at the more beautiful version. But I'm actually a real fan of technology and art for that reason, because I just feel like it's so distinctly human, that it's, you know, it just kind of leaps out as being different. But then obviously the other side of that, when you know, you touched upon it there with like AI, is that it can be as terrifying as it is exciting. But you know, you're a big advocate for kind of using the most advanced technology at hand, right, to push us forward. And what are some thoughts around that? Technology is a tool for good and a tool for destruction.
Well, that's the thing. You've got to remember, technology is a tool. That's the first thing. That,
Right.
for example, AI is a tool. There is no there is no uniform AI. It doesn't have one meaning. Every single person that uses computing, or like I guess your intelligent process, has their own approach to it, and it's much more about the people. And there is so much potential, which is exciting and terrifying simultaneously. And to quote CJ Carr, a good friend of mine, it has the power to launch nuclear weapons, or it has the power to save millions and millions of lives. And what we mean when we say that is this potential, it allows us to see the world and understand the world and ourselves and data and information in a way that we cannot. And that is a fact. There is a level of power with it, which will be the same type of revelation in which gas and electric, basic, so like fire and electric, change society. And I really believe that to be a fact. So then the question is, oh, well, that sounds very scary, Reeps. Why are you using it? Why are you interacting with it? Because that's bad. We don't know where it's going. And what I say to that is, do you really think me not using it is going to stop other people and like corporate people engaging with it? What matters? What matters is real people, genuine people out there having an understanding of what it actually is and what its capacity is. Because if you just leave it to the tech, the academic, commercial spaces, what you have is bottom down, basically communication. That these things are being used to extrapolate data, to take information across the board, and to actually have an individual, an artist, work with top level engineers and experiment with it and play with it. You create a curiosity which can lead to knowledge, and that knowledge can lead to understanding on a much larger scale, and that on a much larger scale can lead to legislation and monitoring. And the fact that if you just ignore it and go, that's bad, it means that all the power stays with the people that already have it and are already using it. So as an artist, let's raise awareness. And that applies to any emerging tech, any bleeding tech. Artists should be fucking with this shit because it makes people curious.
Yeah, I'm with you. And as you say, it balances it out, right? If you don't, if if anyone who's kind of afraid of the negative effects technology could have doesn't use it, well, then you're just leaving it to the people who may possibly use it for messed up things. And also, I've always felt that like good and bad is something that kind of runs through us all, right? And the technology, as you said, is just a tool, and it doesn't matter whether it's a rock. A rock on the ground could be used to build a house, or you could use it to, throw at someone, beat someone's head in. And it's the same with technology, right? So
well, I guess. Oh, sorry, I'm so
no, go
sorry,
on, mate.
but like, it's just an important like thought. Like, the thing that I call for, because I gave a talk at United Nations last year, and it was all about like artist and narrative. So artists are the ones that govern the narrative, and I also said that we have to be so careful about the words that we use about these things. No one is questioning the term AI. Like, when I say no one, there are people, but it's rolled out all the time by these leading conferences, and it's so vague, it's so abstract that it's the ways in which these things are used should be defined and monitored and shared and made accessible. So are we talking about an artist creating a generative voice that they sing with, or are we talking about like using machine learning to extrapolate data? Are we talking about computer vision for giving civilian credit ratings so that people are being monitored in every aspect of their life?
Yeah.
And it's like we need to, as a society, we need to update the terms we use for these things, because we just need to be more specific. And if we just go, oh my God, for example, 5G is bad. For example, AI is bad. Well, it's like, no, let's talk in specifics. Let's explore that. And a lot of people don't have the headspace or the energy to actually do that. So art is an incredible vehicle for that, because it creates an experience that leads to the kind of 2.0 of society, where they have a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it is so true. Actually, it's like the term AI has almost been completely hijacked by the idea that AI is a bad thing, right? When you mostly, if you know, if I think of AI, the first thing that jumps into my head is robots are going to take over the world, you know, and you're right, that's ridiculous. That's like saying that when you say the word human being, you know, you just you reduce that word to mean one thing, which could be like really evil, you know. And you know, human beings can be evil, obviously, but I hear what you say, what you're saying. There's,
It's like, let's have a conversation about it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's the thing. Let's talk about it. Let's not just leave it as human being or AI. Like, let's actually like talk about it.
yeah,
So yeah, science fiction definitely has had a lot of impact on sensationalism, and that has a lot of negative impacts on progress. Because, like, for example, someone will think that they have a choice not to interact with machine learning, and they'll like completely like opt out of everything, what that like consciously say something on their laptop, but just by using a smart device like your mobile, you're interacting with machine learning. It's just that there's no two ways about it. There's going to be some aspect of you engaging with that. And the question is all right, so if you didn't have the knee-jerk reaction, would you be more willing to actually go into the settings of a lot of these applications you have, and to actually like cater, which many of these apps allow you to do, cater for what information you give it, and like, and how exactly it's going to work, or how this specific AI technology is going to interact with your information. But because people think, oh my god, AI, Terminator, like sentient, bad, they end up not playing, they end up not using it with the nuance and intelligence that they could do.
yeah,
And it's those, that's a problem of narrative. And man, I've been in so many rooms where like I'm the artist, and the artist and is questioned, because it's like, why the hell do artists matter? The artists make pretty things. But I had a bit of a smackdown moment when I was at United Nations, because I was talking about I won't say who it was because I'm not allowed, but I was talking about some of my ideas, and someone said to me, they were like, so you're saying that art can help sort of communicate like these difficult ideas with technology, and can sort of lead to change. He's like, can you give me an example? And I said, well, yeah, of course. I was like, let's talk about deep fakes. So deep fakes, the technology has been around for a number of years, but it's only when artists and creatives started to misuse it for porn and for artwork, that it was brought to the masses, and the masses ended up like, if you say deep fake to most people now, they'll know what you're talking about. And that has directly led to monitoring, and Google now are one of their main investments is producing technology that allows us to identify deepfakes. So it's mad how much like the kind of unveiling of work can have an impact on the kind of the existence of these technologies. And when you think of artists in those terms, it's like, wow, you actually have a lot of power. You can make a lot of change. And I don't think everybody thinks in those terms. And that's a really exciting thing, that artistic expertise is important, because you are the governors of narrative. You write the stories that make this actually connect.
yeah. And it's interesting. So, would you say, I wanted to talk about the United Nations, which you have already, but that summit's called the AI for Good Global Summit, right? But did it feel that, even though, like, you know, that sounds as if it should be everyone together and like, yes, AI for good, but you know, as an artist, you felt a little bit challenged maybe in there, or, you know, did you almost have to kind of fight your corner a little bit um, within the summit?
Every institution, every conference that I've been to, which is not artist led, I have to fight my corner. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm bloody good at. And that's one thing that I think people can get twisted about me, is they see me do, like, Davos is seen as one of the most like elite events in the world. And you go to an event like that, and it's almost like too much, like those spaces, because they affect such huge bodies of human beings. And there are ways in which people normally get there. Like me getting there through my ideas and my portfolio and making sounds and voice is not a traditional route. So I have to back my ideas, and every talk I give, every interaction, there's a Q&A, and people come for you and they test and they question, because they think that experimentation and arts is it's hard for them to make that lateral connection to the subject I was talking about. That artistic expertise is direct to narrative, and narrative is direct to the masses. And but the thing is, it's very hard to argue against that, because if I'm there to talk about the fact that like modernization is happening so quickly that we need as many torches on these problems as possible, and as artists we're here to experiment with this technology, to create curiosity. Like, we're here to open doors. We're not the closer of doors. We don't get to like finalize the research and build the product and or write the paper necessarily always. I do have an authorship on the scientific paper though, which is which I will say clap, 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 clap. No, joking. But the fighting for artists, like, that's what I'm passionate about, is to make the hardest people to convince stop for a minute and go, hold on, do you know what, wait a minute, an artist can really bring value to this or this space. And like I sound like I'm blowing my own horn here, but it's an important thing to share. Is after the performance that I co-directed in United Nations last year, AI for Good, ITU and United Nations have basically said they're going to try and include art at all of their summits, which is amazing. That's, to me, that's a goal. So I'm not there to like, it's not about the obvious things and just trying to climb a ladder for the sake of it. It's like, no, I'm representing the people, and hopefully we can make steps in that, step by step.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I can totally imagine that when you are like studying in the same kind of field of artificial intelligence and technology as you are, but not in a like an artistic sense, more in a kind of academic sense, where you're trying to make medical advancements or like technological advancements with computers and robots and all that kind of stuff. That, yeah, I could see how they might look at art and be like, why is this here? But I think the important thing is the kind of calming like impact that art can have, the balance that it can restore and the beauty that it has, and the therapy and the healing as well of it. So just when you were speaking there, that's kind of what I thought that these people might be missing. It's almost like, well, I'm making big advancements in my my academic use of technology, I'm going to beat this art. But it isn't really, it doesn't have to be about that, right? It's like, it's nice just to use technology to make beautiful things for the hell of it.
Well, I think it's both, man. Like, that's the thing. It's like, there's for the hell of it art, and then there is like practical art, and practical art can also be like life-changingly like experiential and beautiful and stunning.
Yeah.
And I think those people who are engineers or politicians or academics, or just, this is the most important thing, a world leading engineer is not always that different to one of my mates from Walthamstow that I grew up by, in terms of how much they just don't care about pure experimental anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you got to understand that just because it's artistic and you think it's beautiful does not mean the general public are going to care, and they don't have to. That's the point, because you are expressing from your center for you. But there's something really amazing about when you can turn an experimental idea and make it seem like a practical exploration, because it is, of a certain subject or a piece of technology. And just for me, as someone who has been in a number of different rooms and contexts and disciplines, I realized that art that solves problems feels a lot better than art that doesn't.
Right.
And that's what's guiding like my focus. And I think that those spaces are becoming more and more open to that type of artist, because they're realizing, they're like, crap, we don't actually know how to communicate with the world anymore. We don't know how to actually connect. There's so much misinformation. So that's where I stand. And like, apologies to anyone listening, I'm rambling a little bit because I'm passionate like about this, but it's it comes from me wanting to back the creatives and back the artists, and and also just seeing it work. I see how people are opening up to experimentation and investing in artists more. And I think we're going to see it more and more. We're needed.
Brilliant, mate. And I don't think you need to apologize. This is great stuff. So look, delving more into the AI world then, because I just find it really fascinating. Can we talk a little bit about the Second Self project, which to me, I watched this video when you are in what I describe as like a kind of beautiful jail-like Hype Williams designed environment called, hang on a minute, an anechoic chamber? Is that
Anechoic
right?
chamber, yeah.
Anechoic chamber, yeah. Mate, what was going on there? Because it looked awesome.
Yeah, so I was commissioned by Bell Labs, which is one of the like founding scientific institutions in the world. They basically started a program in the 60s, which is an incredible story if anyone wants to look into it. It was basically kickstarted by Rauschenberg, and they did this thing called the 9 Evenings, and the 9 Evenings was an exhibition of top level engineers being paired with like quite famous artists at the time. So they did these 9 like wacky, like completely ahead of its time experiments, and it's so bonkers what they did. They had something in it that kind of homaged VR. Obviously, it was like not VR, but the sentiment of that was we're going to connect these things together, and that basically continued touching on Andy Warhol and a number of other like incredible artists. And now that's led to the modern day, and now I'm one of the EAT artists. So that means that I have to occasionally create artwork involving bleeding edge technology, and that same idea is like, can we combine these two sort of types of people together and try and make something new? So Bell Labs came to me and said, can you work with generative speech? And I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this. And I'd just been working with a guy called CJ, who's from Dadabots, who makes a AI death metal, which is completely nuts. His name's Dadabots, which you should check out. But he uses a certain technique called sample R&M. So effectively using that, I created an AI version of my voice that spoke like me and it beatboxed like me, but it did phrases and patterns that I've never done before. So the idea was when I was growing up, I played a lot of chess, and I played a chess AI a lot. And I effectively, that was like my first battle with AI, was like on a council estate with this chess computer. So we decided to basically pull that over into the modern day, and I used AI technology to basically battle to do something that is new. So I did this composition, and it culminated in a documentary, and the final piece you saw was this performance piece, which was directed by Simon Weldon and myself. And yeah, it's a crazy piece of video art. I'm super proud of it. It's directly like linked to Kubrick, which I think everybody is inspired by Kubrick. But a really amazing story is when the person, Arthur C. Miller, who wrote 2001 Space Odyssey, he went to Bell Labs, and he in the 60s, and he heard the first ever computer sing. And so they invented speech synthesis. So when the computer sang, it sang Daisy, Daisy. And if you watch 2001 Space Odyssey, when Hal dies, he sings Daisy, Daisy because of Bell Labs.
Wow.
So when I made that piece, I wanted to homage Kubrick, and I wanted to homage speech synthesis, and it was part of the EAT program. So the idea is I want that video piece to be timeless. I want 50 years from now for people to go back and see that human and AI interaction. And it's not about beatboxing. It's not about voice. It's about how a human being can learn and interact with this second self, which we're all going to have soon. We all have data versions of who we are. And I think 100 years from now, those data versions of ourselves could be embodied into interactive, completely personified things. So I wanted to touch on that and be one of the first artists to sort of interact in that way.
Mate, holy shit, man. So what, there'll be like a robot Jimi? walking around?
Yeah, well, there already is to some extent. How you
Where?
use your phone, it's in your phone. Like how you use your phone and where you walk and what you order off Uber Eats. It's all mineable data, which is more scary than AI. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
They're
And
listening, aren't they, man? When you bloody talk about chicken wings to your mate and then open your phone and up pops chicken wings on Uber Eats.
mm,
I
yeah, well,
see
you
what you're
can
doing.
exactly. Uber Eats is listening. That's
But mate, that is another beauty. You've got a lot of beautiful videos out on the internet, but that's another one of them. I love that video, and I think it's really interesting. So that technology that you developed, this second self, was that something you kind of did just for the video, or have you carried that on? Like, can you interact with that now? The reason I ask is because I'm really fascinated with this idea of self-improvement using a second self,
mm,
because it's like your growth and evolution all humans kind of have a growth and an evolution and have the ability to get better at something. But if you're only relying on like other human opponents that you really have no control over, then that could be quite limited, right? Because there's every possibility that you'll just get better than someone and then they no longer challenge you. But this idea that like a version, or like the best version, or the most present up-to-date version of yourself is reflected back at you to kind of like go back and forth with, just seems like an insane being good, an insane way to get better at something like really quickly. Does that
yeah,
make
it's totally
sense?
possible. I know that's you've hit the nail on the head of what my intentions are, and that's the to be like a case study for someone not waiting for people to make it happen. It's like I see this format, and it already exists. Like if you take, say, AlphaGo or AlphaZero, which are the two chess AIs, that basic chess and Go AIs who beat all the best players in the world in both games. Not only did they absolutely decimate the best human beings, they've started to completely change how human beings basically play the game. So these AIs are deities of skill. And for a fact, because that has happened in chess and Go, you're going to start seeing more and more generative sort of experts, where an artist can take a data set of their skill. Say, Jimi, a bunch of your drawings. You could take 50 of your paintings. You use that a data set, and then you can generate infinite versions of your work. And from that, you can curate and go that one. And people can say that is a scary thing. It totally is. Do you know what I mean? Skill is in question. Expertise is in question. But when does that stop the human race? Can we stop it? No. So let's work with it. Let's adapt. Let's grow. And that's the way I see it. And I think opponent design, which is a term I use, and pet self is also another term I use. You're
Pet
starting to
self,
yeah,
cute.
pet self. Yeah, exactly. Because you make it cute because it's you have more ownership over that. But I just think that, like me learning to get better at chess when I was younger, game theory is quite quantifiable. It's very easy to kind of like quantify like 100 million chess games, for example. But 100 million pieces of music, people say it's more abstract, it's more difficult. But the truth is, there are still rules, and there are things, and it's never going to be only AI, but human plus AI, augmented intelligence. That's where it's at. And who is going to be the first iconic augmented intelligent artist? So I think that is no more artificial intelligence. It's augmented intelligence. It's not just mechanical. It's not just human. It's both, and that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, and I suppose like that, because that's the way I kind of understand it. That either one is a vital ingredient. You can't have AI without the human component anyway, right? Because we need to kind of put that shit together. There's I quite often hear that people will be scared that AI will kind of become self-aware and conscious and then take over. But Reeps, give me some input on that, because I don't see myself as a stupid person, but I'm definitely no expert. But that is the part that seems impossible to me. Yes, AI could kind of make an attempt at appearing to be thinking for itself and appearing to be alive, but it can't have life energy or life force running through those cold cables and wires and metal, could it? or could it?
Well, man, I'll ask you a very simple question. So can you tell me what consciousness is and being sentient is?
No, I can't. Reeps One.
Exactly. So for us to be so concerned and be so sort of territory proud of like what that, oh, it might become sentient. Nobody knows what consciousness really is. And I think that what we do know is the way we affect the world around us. We know impact, and we need to like accept the fact that it's not about, there's not going to be sort of a moment when it's like, oh my God, it's sentient. It's going to be an incremental, innovative process in which these things are going to be able to at first mimic, and then they will facilitate and then potentially excel like it has done with chess. The question is how will that affect society, and how will it benefit us? And I think there are many things that need to happen in terms of monitoring the technology and the growth. But let's say, just for argument's sake, it became dun 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 sentient. There was a sentient AI. Okay, so if this thing is self-aware and it's a total like open book, who's to say that it's not going to sort of pick something that is it thinks is so important? Why does it have to be hurting human beings? It could be working out pi to one infinite like decimal places. If something has infinite capacity, it then has infinite possibilities of what it decides to do. So what it's probably going to do is just stop interacting. There's so many other things it could be doing instead of like hurting human beings. So we shouldn't be talking about, is it going to become sentient? We should be talking about what kind of power does this facilitate, and are we aware of it, and is it being monitored? And I think awareness is the thing that's going to kind of tackle that. Yeah, being enhanced by AI in every way, I think that's totally on the cards. And are we going to be excited, or are we going to be afraid? Are we going to engage or avoid? And like those are the real questions.
Yeah, mate, I think that's brilliant. I mean, I'm starting to suspect that you might have an army of AI pets in your closet,
Mate,
ready.
I'm currently working on a project which it's not deep learning, so it's not the kind of like it's a piece of kind of technology that's been around for ages, but effectively it allows me to turn any producer into a real-time AI that I can battle. So I could basically take like Square Pusher or Flying Lotus or Travis Scott and basically turn them into something that responds to me.
That's dope.
And
What,
and
just by feeding in like a back catalog?
yeah, well, yeah. So I give it like a source audio. So say it could be like 10 Travis Scott's tunes. And then from the input that I give it, it will try and rebuild what I give it what it tries to rebuild the input from what I've given it as a source audio. So say 10 Travis Scott tracks. So if I'm like, it might come back with, which is like a, just from the production.
Yeah.
But if I do something more complicated, like, it'll go. So I end up having these really fucking complex back and forths with with this tech, and I'm going to release some videos soon. It's crazy, man, and it's a lot of fun. But
Mate,
it's no sentient AI.
no, that's dope, man. And look, the overwhelming kind of sense I'm getting from this podcast, which is amazing, it's kind of a realization for me, is that you are a champion of the technology, and that's what we need more of, right? I mean, this is from an outsider looking in, so it might be a little reductive, but you just stop the conversation as soon as you kind of like, get afraid of it or pretend to get afraid of it. And I think we definitely need more champions and artists and creators, using the technology for positive reasons, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, like let's talk in terms of purpose. Like, I'm not the kind of person that can continue doing something without feeling a sense of objective purpose. Like, I genuinely want to help people. And, but that doesn't mean I want to let up on doing crazy, like visceral things. Like, I still want to create crazy artwork, and I want to perform in a way that like I'm excited about.
Yeah.
But if you can do that and lead to change, and lead to inspiration, or solve a problem, or help someone think about something, then I think, wow, like you're really doing something right. And that's, I think after a while as an artist, you got to stop and think like, am I doing something, or am I am I making bank? Like, what is my idea of purpose? Like, do I know that? Am I doing it because I think I know it? Or are we going to like use a pandemic to stop and think, why are we where we are? And yeah, why is a powerful question to ask right now. And if you keep asking it, it's very interesting where you end up.
Yeah. Well, mate, I mean, purpose leads me nicely onto the last video that I wanted to talk about, which is the We Speak Music episode, where I think are you in New York? And you basically go into a kind of class of kids who are learning to beatbox, and these kids, on the whole, have like a variety of disabilities. Was that in New York?
Yeah. So it's Lavelle School for the Blind, and they've been using beatboxing to basically as speech therapy for some time, and they've been allowing kids who really struggle to articulate themselves, who struggle to speak, through beatboxing. They've been regaining control of their voices, and they've been actually like articulating and speaking much better. So it's a totally new thing regarding speech therapy, and to see the kids. That's part of a documentary we made last year, and yeah, it's called We Speak Music, and it's episode 4. So anybody wants to like check that out. We played that at film festivals all around the world and cinemas all around the world, but we released pieces of the documentary just online for some people to check out. But that was a really emotional thing for me. That again, it's perfect timing, Jimmy. That type of experimentation was really helping people. And this year I'm planning on working with the Larrys, which is a choir in London. Their uh, they've all had their voice boxes taken out. Um, so they basically they've had their voices taken out. So when they sing like this. And I've been writing a composition with them, because what we realized is the way that they talk, they sing through that technique, but non-diaphragmatic beatbox sounds like they can actually do. So they've been beatboxing.
Wow.
So they lost their voices, but now they're able to express themselves in that way. So I'm writing a piece for them as well. And again, like, I want to make something amazing. I'm going to design the visual through a performance, and it could be a really beautiful thing, giving these people who lost their voices a new way to express themselves. So that's just a few examples of where well-being can inspire like visceral and crazy artwork.
It's really beautiful, mate. And just watching a few of these videos, and that one particularly, the We Speak Music, just seeing the way that like what we will label as beatboxing can sort of translate into, you know, a form of speech therapy, I found really incredible. And it almost kind of made me think that, you know, the label of beatboxing, because it just does kind of like conjure up images of like the fifth element of hip hop. I don't want to say it's like a bad thing that's limiting, but bloody hell, man, when I was watching, you know, these kids who, as you said, like, you know, some of them were having real trouble just kind of communicating what we'd say that like in the normal way with words. When this, you know, one of the girls who was working in the workshop with you kind of broke it down to this one kid who had real trouble communicating. Look, you're awesome at beatboxing, and you can make these beatboxing sounds like with real confidence. Well, why don't you just apply that to the way that you speak, you know, and speak as if you're beatboxing? And it seemed as if he had an epiphany with it, and it, you know, almost instantaneously transformed the way that he would go about communicating with people.
Totally, you're hacking the self, hacking speech systems with music systems, and they are two different ways of expressing and communicating. And yeah, man, like I've given up like thinking I do what I do. I'm totally a beatboxer, but I'm also totally many other things. And and I'm a director. And the goal of that is to just, I let my portfolio, my work do the talking, but people will always put beatboxing in the beatbox, because that's like,
it's what people do.
It's what people do. But then that's my job, is to like smash that apart and like throw some curveballs, and hopefully at the end of that lead to some inspiration.
And say, fuck that, man, beatboxing's gonna save the world.
Well, man, exploring the human voice could benefit the entire planet.
I don't doubt you for a second. Well, mate, look, before we wrap this up, can we talk about your other art your visual art real quick.
Yeah, the forgotten tomb. So it's
Right.
I still do visual work as much as I can. Like I started with you guys, like battling in Secret Wars. Like
You were the champion, weren't you? You definitely
no,
were in the
no, when I was
final.
I was the young people's champ. That's how I saw it.
That's
So
it. You were the people's champ, mate. We should should we bring Terry Guy in for a little cameo because we're talking about sequels?
yeah, go on, man. Yeah, I'm curious. Like Terry, I doubt you can remember, but can you like very quickly try to relay the first
Here
time
he
I met
is.
you?
Try to relay the first time.
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't know if because it was at Juno Bar, wasn't it? When I
Yeah.
think I walked up to you
Hang on.
and yeah, you asked me for a gig or something, didn't you? You were like, do you want to play another show?
Um,
Which somehow you came up to me, Juno Bar, one of the first ever battles, and I think I was sweating on the front stage, looking to put something on to keep the crowd entertained, and you just popped up in my life out of somewhere, just and said, "Hey, I'm a beatboxer." To be honest, you weren't even old enough to be in the bar.
No, no, I
I
wasn't.
think you snuck your way in and then got on stage, and the rest is history, right?
Yeah, man. Well, actually, like, I know I've said it before, but like, why not say it now? But I do believe that that little interaction, my mate nudging me, being like, "Yo, you should ask if you can jump up," probably did change my life. Like, there's very few moments. There's very few moments that you can like go, "Oh, that definitely like led on a different path." But I think, yeah, you being open to me coming and like making noise over the events in that moment, and we did that gig at the Ice Bar, which was the next one. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it definitely led to some of the first gigs that I ever did. So, yeah, there's battling in Secret Walls, and I've done a lot of like huge illustration work, and like I've had a number of exhibitions, but I've landed much more in the conceptual. But during the pandemic, like I've been so open to drawings again, and I've opened up my archive to my fans, which has been crazy. How people have responded to the drawings, and
What's the deal there, mate? How have you done that? I saw the post, but how have you opened it up? Have you just kind of digitized everything, and there's a place that people can go and look at
yeah,
it? Or?
so my philosophy for this was instead of like working through galleries or institutions, which normally that's like the way it would run. It's like, you know what? Now there's no time for ego or like anyone else. It's just like I'm gonna find a way to directly give my fans access. So I just made an Instagram with that links to my merch website, and basically the work's up there, and I'll get DM'd, and people are buying originals. So like I could have made prints, and I could have there are other things that like whenever we release merch, it like sells out super quick, but the artwork is so personal, and I just wanted a bit of that feeling that I'm directly connecting and giving these pieces of art that have been in my house for some time or my archive for some time like a home. And just the messages and the people that have said how the visual work has affected them and has been just a really interesting process. But I've done a number of different yeah, like print series, and we did a whole photography project using vibration, so vibration of the human voice through like water and different matter. We built like a large scale metal structure that resonated, and from that we took like photographs which just looked like CGI. So it's like,
Photographs of the water and the patterns that
yeah, the
it
sound
makes.
passing through it, which is
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, that's on my website, reeps100.com. Anyone
I
wants
need to check that out, mate. And sorry, but that's another thing that really interests me as well, because I imagine that those CGI-looking photos that you've taken are the water kind of replicating patterns in nature, right? Just like those soundboard experiments where you pour the sand on top of a flat plane on a speaker, and tweak it and tweak the vibrations, and suddenly you're met with like a zebra pattern or a zebra pattern if you're American, or a tortoise shell.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a lot of work again using the voice to like explore physics, explore vibration, and to the fact that sound is a physical thing, and revealing the voice in matter has been like that kind of started my audiovisual journey. But again, all of this noise, all of these things are effectively all cross section at trying to use art to understand the world around you. And I believe that was the birthplace of a lot of art, and the art that really connects does that. And yeah, that really is the goal. So I appreciate being able to like kind of dart left and right, man, and share like a few of the meanderings. I appreciate it.
Mate,
I was gonna,
amazing. Go on, Terry.
I was going to say, and I'll stay quiet after that, but I'm just having, after listening to you guys on this podcast, I've been like having all these like crazy little spiritual moments myself. I'm just like watching the IG live battle. It's about to go live now. Like Topo versus Greg Mishka. And I'm just thinking to myself, like rewinding back 15 years ago for when it all started, when we were just like using like, you know, shitty marker pens on a Juno wall, to where we are now going digital, and where me and Jimmy and Emmett are trying to evolve the brand, you know, and in this crisis. And I'm just having loads of crazy every day because of this crisis. And there's so many things to think about, and so many things you guys touched on, but artists and all that having to like, and brands having to recreate themselves after this kind of crazy tragic times. Like the world's not going to be the same place. And I think it's going to be a really interesting challenge, and a lot of the stuff you guys talk about is going to be really relevant moving into the future, you know, for people to stay.
Man, hey, those that adapt survive. Like that's it. So we all need to find new ways of connecting, and Secret Walls represents like giving artists a platform to go at it with someone that they don't get access to anywhere else. And again, it's going to be all about the people that offer something unique. Like there's going to be a bottleneck after this. Everyone's going to be like running after everything. So it's only the most unique ideas are going to be prevail. So everyone needs to get a little bit more smart with the way they're seeing the world. Otherwise they might get left behind a little bit.
Well, yeah, and we all need to have more purpose. And I love like what you said about your own career and that zoom out moment. I think I'm having that like every day right now. Like, and me and you had that chat around the fire pit last year. But it's kind of like, what are we doing and why? You know, why does Secret Walls exist? Me and Jimmy, you know, and Emmett and the boys, we asked that question a lot recently. And I think it's, brands need purpose more than ever. Artists need purpose more than ever. It's not, you can't just keep doing the same old shit if you want to survive in this new world, which, you know, we don't all know the answers to what's next. But
yeah, the really interesting idea I came across this year, like even right at the top, they're thinking the same. Like the biggest, most capitalist companies in the world are announcing that capitalism is dead in the way that it was. You know, it's like the way in which that we are gonna, if you're involved, if you're the director of a company, you can't just sell anymore. You need to have some level of awareness to what you're doing. And it's all, you can greenwash all you want and pretend that you are, but it's only the sustainable companies, the ones that are actually thinking and setting up their businesses to be, it's called like shareholder capitalism. So every single chain of the people you interact with as a company, so from you as the director down to your employees, to the people you're buying products on, the societies they live in, the consumers, the societies they live in, they all need to feel benefits from what you're offering. And that seems to be the only way for any of this to last, because it's the traditional capitalist idea is just burning the world out. And regardless of how you feel about global warming or not, just in terms of resources, it's a fact. We're rinsing stuff. Population is going up. So it's a crazy time.
It is a crazy time, man. And I think that's it. You know, this virus definitely will, in a sense, kind of burn things down to the ground. And, you know, we need to see what's going to raise up out of the ashes. But hopefully Secret Walls will be one of those companies, which it definitely will. Reeps will be right there as well.
This topic's like a whole nother podcast in itself, you know, episode 2 in a few months' time when we get through, hopefully, the worst of it. But I'll say one more thing and then I'll mute myself. But I just wanted to say, you know, the emotional part of honoured to be a part of your story and a part of the growth of Reeps One, and happy that me and Jimmy and the boys were part of the early stages of where you came from and where where you're going. So,
no, man, I'm so grateful to have like met you guys. And again, it's a podcast, don't want to make it too soppy, but I do see you guys as big brothers and always will. And I think we all need each other more than ever now. Like there's no room for complacency, and like I'm trying to be grateful, and I'm really, really grateful for knowing you guys and the constant sort of, I know that like we go in and out of like speaking, but it's been a long time now and we're here, aren't we? So it's like,
Yep.
it's there is something to be said for the sort of persistence of time. And I look forward to what we do next. And I know that you guys are gonna, like Terry, I see the way that you support people around you and the employees that you bring on and all of their stories. And there's always going to be ups and downs and emotions, but it's yeah, like I do have genuine respect for that, and it's great to be a part of it in some way. So yeah, hopefully we can all make some crazy stuff really soon.
Yeah, man, appreciate that. It's a team effort, and that's what we've always been good at, you know, assembling a good team of creatives and thinkers, and that's what's going to get us out of this one and hopefully help others. So, you know, we have to keep thinking up new ideas and positive kind of purposeful kind of missions, and that's kind of, again, the question I'm asking myself every day, and I'm sure we all are as we go through it. So, yeah,
Lovely.
I'm going to go back to mute, over to Jimmy.
Well, mate, I think that's probably a nice place to end it, unless, like Terry's shameless plug for our IG battles, which I liked, unless you have any place you want to direct people, Reeps.
Yeah, just come say yo at Instagram. So like at Reeps One, REEPSONE. And there's more of the conceptual studio stuff that I've made at reeps100.com. But yeah, there's it's a pleasure. Like hopefully there's some inspiration afoot, and yeah, I maybe will interact with all of you somewhere in the universe at some point.
Oh, you will, mate. And listen, I really, really enjoyed that episode, mate. Thanks a lot. I mean, I think you're a creative genius, or should I say that you have genius flowing through you. But thanks again for coming on, man, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, man. Well, it's just the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're all moving towards something, and it's an easy thing to say, but when we do achieve some kind of new normal, there's going to be I think a fresh start for everyone. So yeah, big up, and all my love to all the Secret Wars people and to everybody that's ever been around that whole energy. Good ginger energy back to you.
Well, mate, on that note, that's the place we got to end it. Peace out.
Big up.